on to volume. So yesterday what we did, we worked on different surface area, right? Finding the surface area of different shapes, from cylinder to cones to pyramids. What else did we do? Sphere, right? So today we're going to move on to finding their volume. What's the difference between a surface area and volume?
The volume is the size.
It's the size. It's how much it can contain, right? So when I'm talking about a volume of a water bottle, right? You're talking about how much does it contain or can it contain, right? And we usually use what units for that if we're talking about liquid?
Cube.
What, if I'm talking about liquid, do you tell people like it fits like, we use liter, milliliter, right? For volume, right? We use for liquid, right? And then what do you use for I think mostly we use volume for liquid anyway, so it's milliliter and liter, right? But then when you do the calculation, right? If I'm doing the calculation of a volume of a shape, right? What are you going to end up with? Centimeter cube, right? Because what happens is when you're looking at the volume, how much can it fit or how much space does it take, right? What you're going to do, you're going to always multiply the 3 dimensions. So you're going to multiply your length, your width, and your height in some proportion, okay? So in this case, for example, the volume of a prism, what do you do? What's the formula for the volume of a prism? Length times width times height. So you're doing centimeter by centimeter by centimeter, which is going to give you centimeter cube, or meter times meter times meter, which is going to give you meter cube. So your volume is going to end up being in a unit cube, okay? So we have to sometimes, if we're going to report it, because if we're going to compare two things, we're going to have to sometimes change from meter cube or centimeter cube to liter or milliliter. And we'll talk about how we can do that during the lesson, okay? So again, the first thing that you always want to look at, make sure that your units are all the same, right? So they're all centimeter or they're all meter or whatever, inch, feet, whatever it is. So a rectangular prism has a base that is 15 by 12 centimeter and a height of 20 centimeter. Calculate the volume. So as you told me that the formula is length times width times height. So it's a matter of just multiplying all three and finding the answer. So what's 20 by 15 by 12? 3,600 centimeter cube. All right? So, I mean, at this point, I can leave it like this because the question is not asking me anything else, right? But if the question asks me to convert this to milliliter or to liter, do you guys know what the conversion is? So to find what? What do you think? To find the liters, right? So your conversion here, I mean, you don't see it. I don't think you see it in your conversion sheet, right? So there is between centimeter and. Okay, so there is one. Okay, so it tells you that 1 centimeter cube is equal to 1,000 liter. No, it should be 1 liter equals to 1,000 centimeters. Okay, so I'm going to give you this. 1 centimeter cube is actually equal to 1 milliliter.
Yes.
Right? So when I say centimeter cube, that's the same thing as milliliter. Okay? So and then 1 milliliter is equal to, or 1 liter is equal to, 1 liter is equal to 1,000 milliliter, right? Which right away gives me the conversion of 1 centimeter cube, 1 liter, I keep messing this up. 1 liter is equal to 1,000 centimeter cube. Okay? So these conversions you can use if you want to use that. Okay? Just remember, the easiest one to remember always is 1 centimeter cube is equal to 1 milliliter. Okay? Now, this is going to be 3,600 milliliter, right? Which is the same thing as saying it's 3.6 liter, right? Are we okay with this? Now, you don't need to change this, you don't need to do it unless the question asks you to. Okay? So technically speaking, you only have to leave your answer in centimeter cube or whatever unit cube. If I ask you to change it to liter or milliliter, then you do it. Okay? Okay? Does it matter if it's an open box or a closed box when we're talking about volume?
No.
No. Right? Volume, the formula for volume is not going to change. Whatever you have in your formula sheet, you're going to use. Remember with surface area, we said it depends. If we're missing a side, then we're going to have to change our formula, depending on what side is missing. Like you did the pipe question yesterday, right? And the pipe question was open from both ends. So you don't include that, right? But when it comes to volume, it doesn't matter. Open, closed, it's the same volume. Okay? What's the volume of this box? What do you do? So always, whenever you're solving problems, guys, you're gonna start, you can do what we call the grasp method, okay? By writing the given, the required, the analysis, solve, and paraphrase. We don't have to actually write the given, technically, the first two steps, right? Because they're in your question. But at least what I want from you is I want the formula, okay? Don't start plugging in numbers without writing the formula down, okay? So volume is length times width times height, which is 18 by 24 by 16. And what will be my...
They're both 18. Both and one is 18.
No, it's 18 and 24.
Oh, okay. Spread out.
6,000, 12 cubic inch.
Is it inch cube?
Cubic inch.
Cubic inch.
Okay? You can always include a therefore statement if you feel like this is a word problem. Okay? Easy stuff, no questions, right? These are the easy part. How about a shape like this? How would you calculate the volume of such a composite shape?
Put into the two rectangular prisms.
Yeah, split into two rectangular prisms.
Cut it from the top, square it.
Okay, you can cut it from the top or you can cut it from the bottom. Doesn't matter. Can you do this or can you do or this? Right? Doesn't matter. All right, and then what do I do after that? Find the volume of each one and then add. Right? There's no hidden parts here. Right? Remember, with the surface area, it was much harder. Right? Because there is sides that you don't want to count. There is sides that you want to subtract, add, and whatever. Right? With this one, it's easy. Find the volume of the first, and then find the volume of the second, and then add them together. Okay? So the volume of the first, so let's do it this way. The volume of the first, I have length, 9.4, height, 4.2, and then 6.6. Okay? For the blue one, which is number 2, I have 16.8 by 6.6 by 7.5. Okay? So that's going to be, so the volume of one, it's going to be, again, length times width times height, which is going to be 6.6 times 4.2 times 9.4. Does it matter which order you put them in? No. What's the answer for this, guys?
This is 1,092, that's what was 17.
1,092?
Oh, wait, no, for that one, it's
For that
260.
I'm like, that's too big. Okay.
Yeah, 260.57.
Okay. And then for the blue one, what's 16.8 times 6.6? Times 7.5.
831.6.
And then much easier, always. Volume is always much easier than surface area. What would be your answer for this? 1,000,
92.17.
17?
Yeah.
We have none of the same answer.
Hmm?
We did the other.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It should give you exactly the same answer as long as you've used the right dimension, right? Any questions about this? All right, a rectangular prism has a square base with side length of 7 centimeter. Its volume is 392 centimeter cubed. Calculate the height of the prism. So what do I know here?
Length, the sides of the length. And
What
the
length?
The sides length of the square, and we have the volume.
Okay.
I have points and lengths and widths. It's all edge. I don't have the height. But
So I have the
volume.
length, and I have the width, and I have the volume, and I'm looking for the height, right? So if I'm looking at this, remember that it says a square base? When it says a square base, that means both of your sides at the bottom are the same, right? So when you're drawing your cube, this is 7 and this is 7. That's what it means by square base. And then you're looking for your height. Okay? So my volume here is length times width times height, but then my length and width are exactly the same. So what I have here is the volume is 392 equal to 7 times 7 times the height. Okay? 7 times 7 is 49. And then to isolate for h, I just have to divide by 49. And that's going to be 392 divided by 49, which is
8.
so the height of the square base prism is 8 centimeter. Easy? What if I gave you the same question and I told you it's a square base? I didn't give you the side length, but I told you that the height is 8. How is that going to change? So what if I it's a square base, volume is 392, and the height is 8. Find the length and width. What do you do? And I keep that, like I told you, it's a square base.
What do you know for the formula?
So what do I know in the formula?
The answer,
I can't understand what you're saying.
It's
So
7,
So you know the volume and the height.
okay, so I put 392, and then I keep the length and the width, and I know that this is 8. Okay, so what do I do with that?
Divide.
Can replace the L and in other what is called X. They have the same volume, and then divide by
Change the L and W to the same letter.
yeah.
Why is that?
Because they have the
Square
same.
base.
Because it's a square base, that means they have the same dimension, right? So I can do this, right? Because this here and this, they're the same. Instead of calling them L and W, I can call them whatever you want, right? So you can call them X and X, right? So that becomes X squared. So 392 equals to X squared times 8, right? And then you're going to still divide by 8. What's 392 divided by 8? 49. It should be 49. Right? And then to find the length, you're just going to square root, and that's going to give you x equals to 7. Right? doing here is I'm basically changing the question, right?
Over here that you put x squared because the number is the same, right? 7?
Yes. Because I'm telling you that it's a square base.
Yeah, because
Right?
length and width is the same,
Yes,
is the same one.
that's right. So this is like a question that, okay, so make sure that you put that somewhere else, not on the same, like, or separate it from the question, so you don't get confused.